If you've ever wanted an antenna combiner for your in-ear monitor systems, you either need to get a combiner with the same brand as all the units in your rack, or be willing to spend more money for a brand that is compatible across different brands and frequency bands like something like RF Venue. Until now, this is the Phenyx Pro PAS-227x. It's a cost-effective antenna combiner for your in-ear monitor systems so that you can improve your wireless signal, reduce all your antennas down to one paddle, and reduce any potential dropouts. I got sent this unit from Phenyx Pro to test out, so they technically are a sponsor of this video, but I wanted to put it through some tests and give my own opinions for this unit and who I think this may work best for. So why would you want something like this? If your band is running in-ear monitor systems, there comes a point where the more systems you use in your rack, the more risky your signal becomes. The actual amount of antennas is debatable, and it really matters on where you're using your system, the quality of your in-ear monitor system, how good your body packs are. A general rule of thumb, 3 or more in-ear monitor systems, and at that point a combiner is probably a good recommendation. So unlike the RF Combine 4, this one is a half rack unit. So if you're short on space, this is a great option for combining signals. All right, so what's included in the box? You get the combiner, you get a power supply, you get the antenna mounting plate, a bunch of BNC cables, antenna mounting rod, a power adapter, and the paddle. It also comes in this really nice travel case, which is pretty sturdy. So if you need to transport this in the case, it's a good case. Okay, so some specs. The frequency range this covers is 450 to 970 megahertz. This is great for when you have units of different brands in your rack. Shure and Sennheiser have their own combiner systems, but the range of frequency on those is a lot more reflective of what's available in their own in-ear monitor systems. Their bands aren't as wide, and it changes brand to brand. So that's the reason I mention brands like RF Venue, because they have a much wider range that they're compatible with. So I think they feel like more of the fair comparison in systems between this and something like the Combine 4. You can use up to 4 in-ear monitor systems in this combiner. You don't have to use 4. You can just use 1 if you want to get a more reliable signal for a single system. But going from 4 systems with a super wide frequency bands is very, very convenient. I know in my rack, I have 2 Phenyx Pro PTM10s. Both of those are on different bands. One is in the 400 range, one's in the 900, and then my Shure PSM 300 is the G20 band. So I have quite a big range of things that this is actually combining in my own rack, so that's pretty cool. The gain control goes from 0 to 6 dB, and you can adjust that based on how much noise you may be getting in your signal by increasing or decreasing the step counts on the front with those buttons. So if your signal is lacking, you can increase the number for signal loss compensation or lower it if you're in a smaller space with much more crowded RF environments. Here are some power specs if you need this info for anything. That's pretty much it. It's a very simple device that just combines your antennas so that you can ditch your omnidirectional ones and move down to only have one that is directional. A couple clarifications. You still need to find clear channels on your units themselves. This doesn't actually make a channel cleaner that was otherwise noisy or whatever. So you should still take the time to do that in whatever environment you're in, like scanning your place with various apps or the units themselves if they have any sort of self-scanning. You just still need to find a clean channel for whatever environment you're playing in. Second, this is only for UHF bands. This does not work for 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz wireless systems. So if you're using something like an X5 or a cheaper Amazon brand of an in-ear monitor system, that won't work here basically. It has to be UHF. You need to be using a system that outputs via a BNC to an antenna. Number 3, this unit does not transmit power like other combiners might do. Its only purpose is to combine the antennas for your system. So you still need to power your units as you already have been. That's honestly like the biggest downside of this unit for me personally. Some sort of power distribution would have been nice, considering most other combiners do that. It would have raised the cost of the unit, but it still would have been a big improvement. I guess I understand, and in terms of making it some sort of cheaper device, this works fine. 4, you're still limited by the performance of whatever system and body pack you have. So if you're using a cheaper in-ear monitor system, you're still taking risks. You're just minimizing them a little bit when you stack so many signals on top of each other. This will just minimize any sort of interference that you may have been receiving in those antennas or RF signals behind your rack, since the antennas you were using are omnidirectional, and this is just directional, pointing in a specific way. I didn't have any gigs this month to test out this unit in the wild, so what I thought was a decent idea, at least for the time being, to get this video out, I rented a room at a local rehearsal space to try to use this in an environment where there's a lot of people around. And I know many other bands here are using wireless systems of their own, so it was at least the next step up for what I could do that wasn't a full-on gig. This particular rehearsal space has, I think, 30 rooms or something like that. So I picked a window of peak traffic to try to see if it gave me any issues. I have these kind of rigged together, and that's how I'm going to be recording the audio while monitoring it. I have everything set up on the ground over here. I don't really hear a huge difference right now. This is the place that we always rehearse when we have rehearsal. The guys before have mentioned that there's like random clicks and pops with the Phenyx Pro stuff. So it's very interesting that like tonight, especially when it's actually busy tonight and there's a lot of people rehearsing here, I'm actually not really hearing much going on. Maybe that's because I don't have a lot more things pushing through the signal. It's not that noisy tonight, which is interesting. I have it set on 5 as the gain level on here. Okay, so it's as boring as I thought it would be. There's not many clicks tonight. The Shure unit, I rarely have problems with this. It only happens occasionally, but like tonight it seems clean. Without the combiner, with the combiner, everything's fine there. I think just for fun, I'm gonna take this down the hallway. Okay, quick observations. Yeah, there's not as much noise in here tonight as there is normally, but either way, when we used the antenna, it was pretty clean. And what was actually surprising is like taking it down the hall, those pops and clicks, those are the things that you would normally hear when you're in a busy environment with things like just the Phenyx Pro units without the combiner themselves. I think that's all. My testing was more so reassurance that the combiner system worked properly. There's not really a lot to showcase in a video of like a before or after situation without having signal issues present. I like to look at a system like this as just like an insurance policy, because if it works, you won't actually notice the issues. And it definitely is a better idea if you're stacking more and more bands. You will essentially take less risks when you do that. So who is this unit for? This is great if you're someone who has multiple in-ear monitor systems in your rack and you want some insurance with your antenna signal, like I mentioned, if you only have 1 or 2 IEM systems, you're probably okay with just using whatever antennas came with your pieces of gear. But as you go up in units, and especially if you're buying more budget options that don't have the strongest antennas and the best body packs, a combiner is a great peace of mind for your signal performance. Over the last month, I've actually downsized my rack. I went from a 12-unit road case down to a shallow 8-unit rack. And I've also changed the gear to reflect this sort of change in my own rack. I would have to reconfigure some things. I definitely want to actually put it through more band rehearsals before I say, yes, I'll be using it live. But so far, it does seem to be a helpful replacement to having just the standard antennas that came with the in your monitor systems. My next video is actually going to be a rundown of how I switched from a 12-unit rack to the shallow 8-unit. So that'll be coming out in a couple weeks or so. But otherwise, thanks to Phenyx Pro for sending me this unit. It's been fun to try out. Leave a comment if this was helpful in any way, and I'll see you in the next video.